oh, we're suddenly alive. We should probably, greet the audience and do all the professionalism things. Look at this. We're starting on time for, I think, the first time in hammering it out history.
I really think we should honor it by sitting quietly until the 5-minute mark.
Yeah, it just we'll give it that moment of silence treatment where we pause and pay respect to the fact that for once we started on time and thereby delay starting on time. All right, everyone, you know who I am by now, I hope. If you don't, I am Anathema or Shane. I am the project coordinator for Foundry Virtual Tabletop, and many of you know me from the Foundry Discord, where I occasionally manifest and yell at people about things.
And of course, I'm Cody Sandrowski. I joined Nath for hammering it out. I'm the person, whenever anything goes wrong, it's my fault, especially with Pathfinder. We are excited to be back with another episode of Hammering It Out. I think we're mostly on track this year for roughly monthly. I think, we maybe missed one or two, but we're doing good.
I believe we may have missed last month's, but things have been rather hectic as we work towards getting version 10 out the door for everyone to actually enjoy and see some of the very cool features that we've been
I think last month we talked to Cora about Pathfinder's official content on Foundry, didn't we?
That was the month before.
Time flies when you're developing.
Maybe the stream, the Hammering It Out with Russell and wow, it's super embarrassing. I cannot remember his name. Josh Sawyer.
Sawyer.
Yeah, Josh Sawyer. Was that in June? It was in June.
Yeah, so we're doing good. We're doing fine.
We actually didn't miss one last month.
Well, continuing on with our love for Paizo and Pathfinder content, I think a lot of people will recognize some of the guests we have today. But speaking of being busy, Nath, what have we been up to the last month?
Oh man, so we are neck deep in a lot of upcoming projects. We're working with a lot to get towards Gen Con, which is coming up, that I think you, Matt, and Andrew will all be at. Is that correct?
Yes, we're looking forward to seeing some of the community while we're there. We'll be sharing a booth with a game board, so come and check out us running Foundry on game board. There's a couple other people that we know who will be there who might have some Foundry surprises when you stop by their booth as well.
In addition, we of course are laboring very steadily towards V10 stable release. It's been a longer road than we initially intended, but we want to make sure that we're releasing a product that everyone will be able to enjoy at the same level. And
just so tempting to keep adding cool new stuff.
Yeah, it's very easy to end up with scope creep, so we work a lot internally to try and prevent that. We ended up adding an additional API development release just to make sure that we had done everything we really needed to do to provide our community developers with enough space to breathe with the API as they migrate to V10. We've also been working a lot on vision modes, journals V2. Just the feature suite going into V10 is massive. I would say it's a step up over V9 even in terms of what we've added.
With 4 developers now, we have had some insane throughput. That's even without all of our developers working only on V10. That said, Development 3 is out now. You can go grab it if you haven't seen the announcement. You can check out some of the cool new stuff, like we have some new vision modes. We have more updates to Journals V2. We have a UI to manage your tours if you have any of those. It's a big update, and it's the end of our development phase. So if you are a content creator or a developer, like one of our guests here is today, now is the right time to start working on getting your package ready for V10.
I will also add that it's super important if you are a general user. You should only install this update if you're going to test it. Do not, please do not, install this for your live game. But you can actually view the patch notes on our website right now. Matt just linked that in chat for everybody. I'm super excited for the journal system and the tours system. Those are the two big highlights for me. I know there's a lot of people that are really excited about vision modes and about some of the canvas improvements that are coming in, but it is 100% journals and tours in my world. Okay, Matt, I'm going to tweak my volume up instead of you doing it, and hopefully that will resolve some of these audio issues we seem to be having.
Yeah, I mean, now that we have core pings, I mean, V10's really the way to go. That's the V10 again, though, is not the only thing we've been working on. There's a lot that is coming down the pipeline. There's a lot of other cool stuff that's going to be coming. One of the things we did, we made a round of website improvements recently. If you've not seen our new website redesign, not everything is updated yet, but we have a gorgeous new homepage made by in part Kaora, who has recently joined our team part-time, and a effort to continue supporting all of our wonderful Paizo content that we partnered with. We've brought on Cora part-time as, or is she full-time?
She's full-time.
I believe she's full-time.
She has joined the team 100%. We
For those keeping count at home, we are one shy of double-digit Foundry staff. So it has been quite busy. Yeah, can Cora be on the team 150% of the time? We'll ask her. She does do some incredible work. I believe that's 50% per possum that's inside her trench coat, but we'll see.
25% per possum. Okay, hopefully I don't blow anyone's speakers with my sudden volume change. Now. I don't see anyone grabbing their ears and screaming, so we're probably fine there. In addition, of course, we've been working on more than just V10 and the website and all of these awesome things, bringing people on board, that kind of stuff. We migrated from GitLab to GitHub after some policy changes over at GitHub. That ate, I'm going to say, an inordinate amount of Cody's time.
Yeah.
And I mentioned we have Gen Con coming up. We've also got, I will spoil nothing, but I will say that we are working on several pieces of in-house content that may or may not have some announcements about them in the near future.
I would just like to note, in the short amount of time we've been on GitHub, we have already opened and closed 100 pull requests. We've only been on GitHub for like a month.
That's is that a lot for us non-code?
You know, for us it might not be, but it is a significant amount of things to pull through.
I do know that we have in fact closed somewhere in the vicinity of 300 issues in that time period on GitHub. That's I sit there periodically and I just watch the GitHub notifications channel on our Discord and just see how rapidly you guys work. And I think about my struggles with JavaScript and spending 3 hours to get a variable name change. The early conversations in my coding forays with Mooman are hilarious to read back on and go, so this is me yelling at him for 3 hours trying to understand what an array is.
You know, everyone, a lot of people actually get their start with programming in Foundry, surprisingly. We've had several people learn JavaScript because they want to work with Foundry's API. And that's really cool to me. Like, and to help support all the developers, one of the things we've done along with our everything else we've done is we've written some migration guides. So if you are out there and you're looking to get your content that was V9 ready for V10, we have now started putting out some official migration guides. It's in the new theme. It looks really good. It tells you what the changes are and how to migrate through them, and a little bit on why they were done in the first place. We have some more coming, but we've already covered the big ones like the new manifest or the data model migration. So give those a check if you are looking to get started.
So, on that subject, we regularly work with our community developers to try and, I say we like I'm someone giving advice on coding, to try and give general advice for migration. If you are a community developer and you're not already in the V10 API, it's an API feedback, API development on our Discord, that's where you can ask questions about migrating your packages towards V10. I can't encourage you enough to go and ask questions there. The staff is very interested in making sure that any packages that need updating can be updated. We can't volunteer to go out and, push request your repos for it's pull request. I'm showing my lack of coding knowledge here.
It's okay.
We can't, offer pull requests to your repos for how to update your stuff, but we can do the next best thing and answer questions when you run into problems. So with that drive and the migration guides coming up, we are actively encouraging all community developers as best they can to update in advance of the stable release, ideally during the testing phase, so that the small group of users who, have that Venn diagram overlap of is a user who would try a testing build plus is a user who uses a lot of modules, can actually give you feedback on what might be breaking in your add-ons. Over the last couple of months, we did a few live streams. We had, for our May anniversary, we did a retrospective where Matt and Andrew both walked through the lowest available versions of Foundry, the earliest available builds, all the way up to what was current at the time. The outcome's actually pretty cool. I really enjoyed watching and seeing. You can see how Andrew's brain works really well in that stream, because he establishes this concept of what something will be, and then 3 versions later, it's a full feature suite. It's a very neat stream for people who want to see the history of Foundry and how it came to be what it is right now.
Yeah, it was really fun to watch because it's like, wow, I didn't know this was a thing, like literally in the first version. Like this still works well 2 years later in version 10.
Yeah, I think like the journal system was one of the earliest things in the build. Doors as well. Then we also have the live streams for Beginner Box and the Abomination Vaults release from a little while ago that are now available on YouTube. Which all of these you can view on our YouTube channel at any time. It's there.
I did have a lot of fun playing the Beginner Box, and then we did part of Abomination Vaults afterwards. So really nice high quality conversion of that stuff, and it was really fun to play. Slightly
modified story so that we don't outright spoil everything in the adventure, but it's a great watch, and I feel it shows the content off really well. So if you are a person who has not already bought Abomination Vaults or the Beginner Box, there's your opportunity to see what it looks like in an actual play scenario.
Well, what do you think, Nath? Should we bring on our guests?
Yeah, I think we've concluded most of the huge news that has come out recently. It's probably best we just bring these poor dudes that we're going to grill on here to talk about their product and what it is they've been doing with Battlezoo Bestiary and various other role for combat stuff. So if Matt wants to usher them on stage,
Welcome, gentlemen.
ladies and gentlemen, we have Mark. I asked him before this started so I could say it right, and now I can't remember what his answer was. Let's see. Mark Seifter?
Seifter, yes.
Seifter. I did it. I did it.
Pronounced like Eidolon.
I did it. My linguistics professor will not be disappointed with me. And of course, Stephen Glicker, both from Roll for Combat, the guys who have brought you now 3 product lines for Battlezoo. Soon to be 3.
I guess.
I guess you could say there are 3, soon to be 4.
3 soon to be 4.
If you count the Indigo Isles, sort of the Battlezoo Bestiaries, the Battlezoo Ancestries, and soon to be Battlezoo Aldebaran, I'd say that's 3, soon to be 4, maybe.
Yeah, and you're launching a new Kickstarter coming up soon, right?
Yep, it's gonna be on the 26th, so that's under 2 weeks from now.
Yes, July 26th at Kickstarter at rollforcombat.com. You can sign up now, or eldemon.com. And we are here because we are going to be doing a lot of Foundry integration. In fact, we love Foundry so much, and the response to Foundry has been overwhelming. And as a technical person, this entire meeting beforehand, when you're talking about push and pull requests and GitHub, I was like, I sound like I'm at work right now. This is what we talk about all day. I was like, okay. I love it. And yeah, I know the power and have seen the back end and know just how fantastic Foundry is. So this Kickstarter, we're actually making Foundry for some of the products part of the tiers. You just get it. And that's why we wanted to talk about it, is that it's not even an add-on. Like we have decided, like, I've been playing on VTTs for 10 plus years. All of our actual plays are on VTTs. I can go into like my history. I've played pretty much on every single VTT there is. And obviously everyone's starting to move over to that space, as you well know. And I felt like, why don't you include it? Because it's as important as like the PDF at this point. So I felt like, let's start like making it just part of the package. So
well, I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to hear it's a lot of commitment just to go from jump. We're not just doing published documents. We're not doing just published books, just PDFs. We're also doing full virtual tabletop integration from jump. That's a commitment level you don't see from a lot of publishers.
Yeah, but also keep in mind, I think a part of it is I have a heavy technical background, so I'm able to help out somewhat. And we have the 2 Ians who do all of our work, and they are like rock stars. So like, we have 2 of the best probably developers around helping us. So I know these are guys directly from your teams. So
that's
it always helps.
Tikiel and Spartan, I believe.
Correct.
That's right.
Yeah, that is right.
They are awesome gentlemen. They are, for the audience, 2 of the most prominent data entry contributors in the Pathfinder 2E volunteer community system development team.
Yep. And they do all of the development for our modules. And so basically, Mark and I work with them directly, and we give them the content. We go back and have a full testing procedure. And again, with my technical background, we're able to like do actual regression testing, real testing. So when the modules come out, hopefully they're nice and bulletproof, or at least as close as possible. And if not, then we push an update.
Well, we're definitely excited to get talking about Battlezoo and some of the work that you have coming up. But for those in the audience who don't know you yet, Mark, let's start with you. Just who are you? What do you do? And how did you get started in the industry?
Sure thing. So I am Mark Seifter. My current job is the Director of Game Design at Roll for Combat. But those in the audience who do know me might know me from the fact that I worked at Paizo for about 8 years. I started as a game designer during Pathfinder 1st edition, and then became the design manager for the entire design team, and was one of the 4 leads in the creation of Pathfinder 2nd edition. Also did a bunch of stuff in Starfinder for the original game, but of course the Starfinder team expanded it past that, and just a lot. I was the design lead on a lot of products. If you go in and you look design lead in a Pathfinder 2nd edition product, that is me for a lot of them. So I got started in the industry because I was Steven has a technical background, I do too. I was working on my PhD in AI at MIT, but I saw that Sean K. Reynolds, who, is a very famous game designer, had left Paizo and that job post was open, and I thought, I could apply for that, I guess. Like, I probably won't make it past the resume phase, but I know they have a blind test that they can't see who it is. After that point, I could probably ace that if I can make it to the test. And I made it to the test, and I aced the test, and I got the position. So everyone has a different story of how they got into the industry, and sometimes it's from a pretty unusual or weird direction. But that was it for me.
I feel like most people have a weird path into the industry. Like, I don't feel like anyone... I feel like it's pretty where it's just like, I saw a job opening, I applied for it, and I got it. Like, I feel like it's always this, an interesting route in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if I even, like, the other people on the design team, and also counting Sean, who was a chemical engineer who had left right before then, like an architect, an art major, a philosophy major, like every single person is coming from some completely different background, and it's very interesting.
And likewise, Steven, what's your wild story? How did you end up in the industry?
I don't know, by mistake. I actually started out doing podcasts. I actually really like podcasts, and I was big in the video game space before this, like really big in the video game space. And I actually had a video game podcast that I started, oh my god, maybe like 16, 17 years ago. It's been up this way. I think God of War was the first game I reviewed, and World of Warcraft. That's when they came out, so that's how old that podcast was. And then I also was playing role-playing games every week, pretty much since Redbox. We've been playing games, and I was like, what would be a good idea if we like made an actual play? Of course, there wasn't a name for it back then. If we recorded ourselves playing and put it out as a podcast, I bet that'd be pretty popular. And my players were like, no, they didn't want to do it. I was like, come on, really? And I was begging them for years, and then Glass Cannon came out, and then I was like, that's it, we're doing it. If you don't want to be part of it, you're off the game. We're doing it one way or the other, and that's how it started. And we did Dead Suns for Starfinder back when there was like 2 actual plays for all of Paizo, so we got pretty popular then, and that was like about 4 or 5 years ago, I guess 2017, 5 years ago. And from there, I just right place at right time. Starfinder came out, we got a big market segment. Pathfinder 2nd edition came out, we did a new podcast for that. I got very friendly with Eric Mona, who's the publisher at Paizo, and I was always upset that they canceled RPG Superstar. So at PAX Unplugged, I talked to him. I said, hey, would you mind if I took it over and ran it? And he's like, sure. And we figured it all out, and I started RPG Superstar. And then I was like, you know what? I was going to just publish a small book, and just put it out at Gen Con. But then COVID happened, and then I was like, oh, now what? And then I was talking to my friends. I have a lot of friends at Blizzard who did a lot of Kickstarters. They're like, oh, do a Kickstarter. I'm like, okay. And then we did a Kickstarter last year, and I got Mark on board because Mark helped write the monster part system for the book. And then he convinced me to do a book on how to play a dragon. And then we did the Kickstarter last year, and it was very successful. And I was like, wow, I guess people really like this stuff. And I like doing it. It's fun. So it sort of became a thing. And, you know, people keep buying it. We keep putting it out. And it's been doing very successful. And then I somehow convinced Mark to leave Paizo and come work with me. And now we're going crazy. So
yeah, I was checking out RPG Superstar, but in preparation for the stream, as someone not in Pathfinder, I hadn't heard of it, but it's really cool that it's this opportunity for people to come up with their own monster creations and submit it and potentially get them, featured and win prizes in a book. That's a really cool way of, coming up with community monsters that have high quality.
Yeah. The old one was that they would come in and submit ideas, and then they'd write an adventure. So there's only be one winner. And then I was like, let's figure out a way to make more winners. And first it was going to be 32 winners, but then I'm like, crazy. So it became 100, and now it's 150. So, but these are people who really come up with good ideas, and it goes through judging, goes through 2 rounds. It goes through public judging and then private judging. And the private judging are RPG professionals like Mark, Linda, Zayas Palmer, Luis from Paizo, a whole bunch of professional developers. And then they're voted on. We have a system. Mark and I came up with a system, and then you're ranked anywhere from grand prize all the way down to copper, but it doesn't matter. Copper is still good. And we actually give feedback, and we'll explain why a copper was a copper versus a grand prize or platinum.
Even making it past the first round and not getting really a copper is pretty impressive, because there's really a lot of people who enter.
And how many entries do you get?
We got almost 500 this year, is that right?
Wow.
Yeah, about 500 and 137 or something like that. Yeah, 137 made it. And these are full, it's and I have a feeling this year will probably crack 1,000. And it was much harder. That was the other thing. This year, they were all good. It wasn't just 500 entries. It was 500 entries, and probably 80% of them were top tier, and probably with some rewrites could be winning monsters. So it was really tough.
There's the first year there were only more 200, so
a little more than 200, a little more
around,
yeah,
right? So it more than doubled this year, and that's part of what made even just getting to the second round pretty hard compared to last year. Someone who won the copper last year, it was less selective than just making it to the second round was this year.
And actually now we have pretty cool prizes too. First you get paid, because we're going to publish your stuff. So you get paid actually a good rate. And then we're also now giving out these coins. So these are actually featured on the site. And these are created just as cool medals. And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, these challenge coins can be made for real. I bet you I could turn these medals into real things. And I gotta get them out of the freaking wrapping, but so here's the gold one. So this is actually the gold medal. So if you win, and I'm still getting these printed up, actually I have the new samples being sent from China, you actually will get these with a little display. So you'll actually get to display, and here's the super rare, ultra rare, it's hard to see because it's too shiny, gold and silver, platinum grand prize winner. With it even has little gems in it and stuff. So
now that I've seen these medals, I think you're gonna have a new entry next time.
Well, that's what happens. Everyone's like, wait a second, you get these medals and there's no other way to get them? And the answer is, and you get paid, and you get your monster created, and you get cool artwork, and the answer is yep, and you get your name in the book. And if you in the book and in the Foundry module, it has your name right there with the prize you won. So we made sure everyone was compensated and shown exactly who won what. Here's like the grand prize one.
That is really cool. I'm a big fan of challenge coins as rewards for stuff. I think there is a future where I probably push for that as some kind of contest that we may run internally about things, though God knows what we might do for that.
God knows how many entries it might generate.
I just want an excuse to give people coins as rewards. I think they're very cool.
These are really heavy too. Like I made these are 2.5 inches. They're thick, so these things ain't fooling around. These things are weapons. And then, well, I'll tell you, if you're gonna run it, the secret is do what I did. It's all automated. That's the coding background of me, is that we have this system where you can enter the monster, and then in the back end we have an all automated system for the actual entries. And I even offered this to Paizo. I even have a way to then export out the code and the monsters from my database into InDesign, and it lays it out for me.
Wow.
So, I know.
You're a man after my own heart.
That's fancy on our end, but on your end, if you're just here watching this, even if you don't intend to enter RPGSuperstar.com, you might want to make an account and just make monsters on it, because the tool that Steven created to enter just to make his life easier for InDesign is actually really good for making monsters for your home game. Like, it suggests the roadmaps from the Game Mastery Guide, and you put in, oh, it's a soldier, it'll suggest all of the values, tell you what they are for the monster of that level, and just is, as far as I've seen, one of the best tools for making a monster, whether you want to actually submit it to the contest or not.
Can I export them into Foundry?
Yeah. Oh, you should add that, Steven. Add an export into Foundry button.
I don't know how to do that. I'd have to look into it. I'm sure I could figure it out.
Tell you what, we could hang out after this and add this feature.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
don't say that.
No,
don't
it's actually
Cody.
it's all done in JSON. It's really, the code is super clean because I had to import it into InDesign, so it is spotless, the code. So I have a feeling it'll very easily go into Foundry.
Just got to get you in touch with the PF2E dev team and say,
yeah, I'm sure they can.
Hey,
do
so
it.
we want to convert this into a module that allows import from RPG Superstar directly in.
I would love that.
Yeah,
no problem.
Those guys will.
Yeah, they'll have it done before you finish asking. They're probably already working on it right now. Now that we've talked about it. So, do any of the monsters from Superstar make their way into Battlezoo then?
Oh yeah,
that's all they are.
That's sort of the point. So, in the last Kickstarter, Battlezoo Bestiary was one of the 3 books. They were the one that's already launched. That's like from a couple years ago. Is Battlezoo Bestiary. And then Battlezoo Ancestries Dragons, and then the Jewel of the Indigo Isles Adventure Path, and the character guide that comes along with it. And so Battlezoo Bestiary is basically at its heart a book to present the winners. And it does so in a way that I feel is very positive for new RPG authors that other companies don't do, because every page, when it's your monster, your name is on that page, rather than just a big list in the front of the book with the names. And it says what prize it won for RPG Superstar 2 on that page. And so it's got all the RPG Superstar winners. Platinum and Grand Prize make a family, so they get multiple monsters. And then the original Battlezoo Bestiary, like Steven said, had a monster part system that's like, a lot of computer and console RPGs where you can craft things out of parts of monsters. Well, you can do that too with Battlezoo Bestiary, and it's really cool. It required rehauling the entire economy of the game, so that's why Steven brought me on as a freelancer at the time. Battlezoo Bestiary Strange and Unusual is going to be in the upcoming July 26th Kickstarter, and that's got the Strange and Unusual RPG Superstar winners in it, plus more monster crafting, the aberrant soul archetype for when your character is transforming into an aberration, and more. So yeah, we definitely have the RPG Superstar winners on there. And I want to address a question I saw from chat that said that it would be maybe a difficult question, but I think it's actually not too difficult, about the fact that they're worried that the Kickstarter format does not incentivize you to deliver more because people have already paid for it. And Steven is laughing because if anything, this guy, Steven, the publisher who's in charge of things, like, he puts in too much more than what he promised during the Kickstarter.
Steven, you're a man after my own heart.
Yes, he already had the
way
money,
too much.
but he does it anyway. Like, the adventure path that Steven thought that he was selling during the Kickstarter, and he priced it accordingly. He told the authors, 20 to 25,000 words each for 3 parts. And then we'll also have some other character options and stuff. Well, one of the 3 parts, the one that he added content to sell to became the longest, was over 90,000 words for that one part by the end of it. And then all the character options got so long that it became a separate, probably around 100-page book that you also got, and you didn't pay more. Like, if you pledged the one adventure, you're just getting all of that now. So, of all the Kickstarters I've ever seen, since I was not at the company at the time that, Steven set up that last one, I've never seen a Kickstarter that gives you this much more than what it said it was going to do, as this one did.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. The book was supposed to be something like 70 to 100,000 words. It's 350,000 words.
Without counting the second book that split like a slime out from the first book and did not charge extra.
Yeah, we're basically, I'm the Brandon Sanderson of books. I put in way too much.
I'm kind of the opinion that, and this is, I guess, it's motivated by the fact that I know you are, we on the Foundry team are as well, very, we are the people, we are our own audience. We are the people who would buy this stuff. And when we're producing content, there's this drive, at least in the back of my mind, I'm sure in the back of yours as well, to make something that you would want to pay for. And it becomes very easy, I think, to go from a small project to, well, we have 2 weeks left before it actually releases, and we need to have it finalized, so maybe we can just jam another 10,000 words or another entire feature into this, because I think people will really like it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happened with the Dragon book. I mean, Mark can tell his story, but basically, Mark wanted to do like a little 32-page book about playing a dragon, and
it's 4 times longer now. At first, what happened was Steven was like, we're going to do a Kickstarter, it's just the Battlezoo Bestiary. And he's like, what should I do after this Kickstarter? I said, I think do a dragon ancestry. Maybe it's 20 pages. It has chromatic and metallic dragons. And so then Steven said, okay, but actually, what if you put all the dragons in it? Because I told him, we could do expansions later if it was popular enough. I said, okay, that's going to be 40 to 50 pages, maybe 60. And he said, all right, then I'm going to put it in the Kickstarter. But then he put it in as a hardcover. And by the time it was actually in the Kickstarter and came out, it's over 128 pages. So it definitely got bigger. But I want to say I really agree with your analysis, Nath, about where we're coming from and why that's a similarity between Foundry and Roll for Combat. And I'll use as an example the way that the errata process works at Roll for Combat, which is pretty interesting. So for me personally, and this is where I find the connection, when I'm a consumer, I want that pretty fancy first printing book that may be a special edition or something like that for my shelf. But I also want it to be right, and I want it to have everything right in it, which is impossible usually to get both, because anywhere like Wizards or Paizo, or anywhere that's going to give you the PDF at all, they're going to wait until the book comes in from the printer, and then you get the PDF. At Roll for Combat, the moment that Steven sends the PDF to the printer to start looking at it, he'll give it to you. And at that point, if people find errata, we collect them and send it to the printer, even if you have to pay a little to the printer to adjust it. And at that point, by the time when you get the first printing of the hardcover, it actually has a bunch of the errata that people found in it, so it's right. And for me, as a consumer, that is just the gold standard, and so that's something that I enjoy.
Yep. In fact, the 5e version of Dragons, we just had to change 6 pages literally today.
To add a multi-classing sidebar, and then that had ramifications on other pages.
Yeah. Well, and someone just mentioned it on our Discord. Someone's like, oh, what about this?
And other people were like, well, you don't need it. You can figure it out. Right. And we were like, no, but we want it.
I asked Mark, and then Mark asked her, because this is for 5. Everything we do, by the way, Pathfinder and 5e, this is for the 5e version. And the 5e team that we have, like, said, you know what, you're right, let's add something. And of course, I'm like, add? And they're like, yeah, it's only like a page. I'm like, I don't have a page, so I had to figure out how to fit that in there.
one thing that, like, as publishers are, moving towards, at least offering VTT alongside their print stuff, or even moving towards VTT first or VTT only, people start discovering, oh wait, I can publish updates after the fact. I don't have to publish an errata on my site. I don't have to bundle this together into a second book. I can just fix this and push it out and get people working. So I'm glad to hear you guys are, collecting all that. I'm glad to hear that you have an avenue to immediately then deliver it to people, without having to worry about printing fees and, finding the info somewhere else.
I'm glad you brought up Foundry for that, because one of the products from, or I guess it's a series of products from this next Kickstarter, is called Year of Monsters. That's the one with the most Foundry integration. It's going to allow for even better updates than any of the rest, and sort of a unique sort of process where the people who sign up for it are sort of joining in and getting to be part of the design of a final book. And the reason for that is Year of Monsters is called Year of Monsters because you wind up signing up for Year of Monsters, and every month you get a new monstrous ancestry, such as demons, gremlins, intelligent weapons, dungeons expanded, oni, nymphs, doppelgangers.
Let me just, for my own edification, let me just make sure that I understand you correctly. These are new playable ancestries.
Yes, intelligent weapon is a playable ancestry.
So I can play a talking sword as which will have a character class.
Yeah, I said dungeons after that. There's already.
I really want to learn more about playing as a dungeon. I'm very
download
interested.
the Foundry module for playing as a dungeon, and
the free Foundry module.
It's free for
5e and Pathfinder.
5e and PF2. The PDF is free too. We're doing the expanded version that's in the Kickstarter, but you can get it right now and play as a dungeon, because the basic idea is that you are an extra dimensional dungeon, and it has a dungeon core that manifests an avatar to go around and do things, which is pretty common in certain lit RPG circles. And you can go into your own extra dimensional dungeon and possibly explore elements of your own backstory, because were you formed when an adventurer died there and their consciousness was pulled in, or did the dungeon congeal into it? Learn more about your own psychology and unlock special abilities and things like that. But yeah, it's a completely playable real ancestry where you're a dungeon. So every month you get a PDF of one of these, and like Steven said before, it's one Foundry module that just gets updates, and that goes with what Cody was saying about you can just do an update. Well, we're taking advantage of that intentionally, because you don't have to do 12 different Foundry modules. Just the one that you already had will update each month when the new ancestry is added onto it. So it's easier for you to deal with in your Foundry. And you actually literally have to go out of your way to not get the Foundry module and be like, no, I will not do this tier that saves me a lot of money. I will, as an add-on, I'm going to add it without the Foundry module, and I don't know why I'm doing this. But so it's pretty tightly integrated, and the cool part is that we're doing a compilation plus book at the end of the year that compiles all 12 and adds more content, including from stretch goals. So first of all, we'll put in all of the errata and other things that people talk about. Second of all, we're going to do streams and talk to people who are part of Year of Monsters. That's how you sort of become part of the design of it. And we'll let those streams and people who've played them and have read them talk about what they want for those expansions. So we'll just be like, okay, we're expanding it to double size in the final book. But you decided how we use those pages based on what you felt was missing from it when you were playing the regular size. And by the way, our regular size is about twice the length of a Paizo ancestry that you might find in the core rulebook or Lost Omens Ancestry Guide or one of those places. Those are usually 4 to 6 pages. That's all they can fit. Ours are more like 10 to 12 as the standard size.
So, as someone who regularly chooses to play non-standard ancestries when playing in a tabletop RPG of any kind, I'm super intrigued by the idea of just a monthly, here's a random ancestry that is monstrous in nature, which hasn't perhaps been developed in comprehensive ways in the core rules of a game. That stuff is my bread and butter. That is right up my alley.
Good.
Perfect.
And it's for both Pathfinder and 5e.
Yes.
And they both
it's
come out at
races
the
and
same
non-ancestries in,
Yes.
in 5e.
But obviously the ones that we chose are strange. You know, like the one that we just announced, the Theno, which is basically the Medusa type people. They have this whole subsection where their hair is like a pet and can do perception checks while you're doing something else. Like you literally have your hair as a sub character of your character. So we're going there. We're really doing things that you just have not seen before. It's not just it's another elf with a different, different skin tone or something. It's like, no, these are monstrous ancestries and they're going to play very differently. A good example is the Dragon Book, as I said. Like anyone who's played a dragon or has actually used the Dragon Book in any of their games, the thing that we often get, the number one thing, is people are like, wow, you are a dragon. Like you feel like a dragon. This is not just, oh, I'm just big and strong. It's like you are a dragon as a fighter or cleric or inventor or whatever. And
here's
so
my weird
that's a
point
big
about
part.
the Dragon Book. Steven held up that giant book, right? And you might think, oh wow, it's 128 pages. Is that because they have like 10 pages that are like, these weird banners have a dragon on them and are a magic item, and here's some vaguely dragon related spells. So I'm going to say that one of the weird interesting selling points is how few different things are in this book. Actually, in my mind, kind of strengthens it. Does not have filler like dragon related things. Like that entire 128 page book is about playing a dragon as an ancestry. It just has a ridiculously overlong ancestry with some two archetypes that let you use class feats to get more stuff that require the ancestry, a versatile heritage to play someone who's like part dragon or has been influenced by dragons, and like a horde rules for dragon hordes. It's directly stuff that you're going to use with your dragon ancestry, and that's all that's in there.
And my favorite part is there is a subsection. It's only 2 pages, but it's how to use your horde to level up.
Hordes of power.
You use gold like a traditional dragon to actually gain levels. And then
it's
you have
sort of based on a, like a geomancy feng shui of like setting up your horde in just the right way. And when you do that, it channels into you and you get power-ups that can either use the same set of power-ups from the monster part system. If you have Battlezoo Bestiary, that's recommended. Or if you don't, you can use it to gain the benefits from the automatic bonus progression list from the Game Mastery Guide, based on how impressive your horde is.
You mentioned the Medusa hair as a pet, but it's my understanding that on top of all these other things you're doing, all these ancestries, you're also introducing a card game, right?
That's true, but the card game is sort of a smaller part of the whole that is Battlezoo Aldebaran. And talking about pets, Battlezoo Aldebaran is definitely connected to that because it is monster training for your tabletop RPG. Oh, is that a Lotus Snake?
Oh my gosh.
So Battlezoo Aldebaran, basically Aldebaran are these playful and ancient creatures that are connected to 10 to 20 elements, which I'm putting those air quotes out there because while earth, fire, air, and water are on that list, it also includes things like life and death and force and possibly, based on the stretch goals, time and music and some other weird things. And so these Eldamon, there have been some people who've tried to homebrew monster training in tabletop RPGs before, but one of the sort of points where it gets tricky a lot of the time is the GM and the rest of the players, they don't necessarily want to do something that is heavily involved with your monster trainer character, but a lot of the time the GM has to like change the encounters or even the entire campaign to make sure, if it's one of those that are more like Pokemon where you have to encounter one of these creatures and then you beat the stuffing out of it and then shove it into a prison ball or something like that, that really affects the game. So what we wanted to do is make it so that you don't have to do that in order to encounter Eldamon. So the way it works is they're sort of phased out from reality. They're there, you can see them, but they live in their own reality that's sort of in tandem with our own. And they like to meld into creatures, objects, or locations that are connected to their element. And so that way, it's like you found a flame tongue. That was just in the GM's adventure. Oh, maybe a fire Eldamon that Steven's holding up a squirrel ash was hanging out in there, and it pops out and is interested because someone picked it up. Or you defeated a frost giant, maybe a Chillot, one of the ice otter Eldamon was chilling out with that frost giant. It pops out after the frost giant is defeated. And so it will allow you to run the same game that you were going to run or a published campaign without making a lot of adjustments for the player who wants to be collecting monsters. But if you do want to, we're going to have all the guidance that you need to do it. So it's all about collecting monsters.
So from a game design perspective, because I'm always struggling with game design for my own RPG that may one day eventually release. I'm curious how you handle an issue that I ran into with a class built around animal handling and pet control, which is how do you balance how do you approach the problem of if the pet is too strong, the character is too weak. It feels like there's this gap that occurs when you deal with a character dependent on another creature, that you kind of get two halves of a character instead of one single power source. How do you handle that for balance?
So certainly as the creator, or the designer of the Summoner class in Pathfinder 2nd Edition and co-designer with Jason Bowman of the Druid class, I have done different takes on that in the past. But when it comes to Eldamon, I feel Summoner does a very good job of it, but it's also a little complex for someone who's new to RPGs. I think that it's much simpler than it could have been. People have told me when I said I thought it's a little complex, they're like, yeah, but it's still pretty simple considering that you've got two creatures out there. But I wanted something that's even easier for people to play, and that can give you more of the fantasy of the creature doing things that are really strong. And one thing that helps us here is the story I mentioned about Eldamon being phased out. So if you do not have the Eldamon trainer class, Eldamon are they can do a giant meteor storm, but it's not going to burn down the forest on the material plane. They'll just fight each other, and they don't kind of kill each other. They just depower themselves because they're sort of energy at that point, and so they're safe afterwards. That also means if you want to play with your kids, you don't have to worry about the dog fighting aspect of it, because first of all, you don't battle them to gain their trust, you befriend them to get them to join you, and then they're sort of play fighting like a dog that is just having fun, and not like dogs that have been trained to kill each other in a normal situation. But if you have the Eldamon trainer class, you can do something else, because anybody can befriend Eldamon if you're a barbarian or a wizard or whatever. The class can trade their own phase on the material plane with the Eldamon and bring it in, so it can fight the ogre that you're fighting, or the troll. Fight a troll with that squirrel Eldamon. It'll take a battle form and go in and fight. Since you're trading your own phase, with the Eldamons, then you only have to worry about what the Eldamon can do. It also means we can have a sidebar in there for people who want to sort of think of an Eldamon trainer more as a shapeshifter who's shapeshifting into this creature and have a versatile shapeshifter for their game. So that's how we decided to handle it. There are ways to do it where both people are sort of out and doing things at the same time, but they tend to be more complicated, like the Summoner class would act together, and some of its sort of tandem actions that you might have seen if you took a look at the Summoner in Secrets of Magic. But in this case, some of the source material, they mostly send the monsters to fight anyway, right? So it's also true to the source material when you have the monsters battling. And if you want to use elements yourself, we have another class in there called the Elemental Avatar, where I mentioned at the start, Eldamon like to meld into creatures and objects, right? But we want to follow the narrative of what that means. So if it's in your sword for a long time, maybe your sword develops fire powers. If it's a Squirrelash and becomes a relic with the fire seed. If it's in your monster, the GM, if they feel like it and want to integrate Eldamon more, could like give it the monster like an extra Eldamon ability or something. But what if it's in you? What if an Eldamon's just been in your body for a long time? You might start developing powers related to that element. And that is what the Elemental Avatar class is, so that you can just directly use the same powers that Eldamon would have used.
That makes me wonder if you've, the mention of this elemental avatar, it makes me wonder if you're familiar with a somewhat rare, this is a throwback to when I was a D&D 3.5 player some 20 plus years ago. I wonder if you're familiar with a little known class called Binder.
Oh, sure, yeah, Binder.
Yeah, that was, I stumbled onto it. It was one of the last D&D 3.5 characters that I played, and I got huge Binder vibes off of your mention of elemental avatar and working with the Eldamon that you've known and using their powers yourself.
I'd say Binder or like a synthesis summoner where it's sort of within you, or there are a lot of different classes that are like that. But yeah, I definitely know Binder. Like in the campaign where Linda Zayas Palmer, who started out playing as one of my players, she's the development manager at Paizo for digital products. Her first campaign, the BBEG, was mostly a Cerebromancer, which is like a wizard scion, but had levels in in Epic Binder, because you didn't need other Binder levels to get them. And one of the major plot points was that he had found a way to bind a vestige of like the goddess of peace and healing that was left behind in that campaign setting. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting class, underutilized.
So I on the subject of further questions, one of the members of our audience inquires, do you have any interest, and this is for both Stephen and you, Mark, do you have any interest in designing base classes for Pathfinder 2nd Edition and or 5e? I mean, we've just spent quite some time talking about, Eldamon trainers.
So the Eldamon Trainer and Elemental Avatar are base classes for Pathfinder 2nd Edition and 5e. I would say I'm pretty interested
Are you interested, Mark? Are you interested?
I'm pretty interested in designing base classes for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I've designed the most base classes for Pathfinder 2nd Edition of anyone, I guess, unless there's someone who's done a lot of Pathfinder Infinite products. Like, I've done just slightly more than Logan did at Paizo. The two of us have designed a lot of the
If
classes.
you're playing a class in Pathfinder, there's a 50% chance Mark designed it.
No, it's way less than
40% chance. 30%
No,
chance.
it's probably closer to 30 or 25, because remember, there are a total of 7 different people who have designed classes.
Okay.
Right.
Well, you did which one? You did Swashbuckler, I know that.
So I did. So everybody together worked on the core 4 for the most part. So they didn't have separate designers. I did about half of Druid, maybe a little less with Jason Bowman. I did Champion. I did Barbarian, Bard, Swashbuckler, Summoner, Inventor, and Thaumaturge for Paizo. And that's not even nearly close to half of the classes that exist, but it happens to be the most by a slight amount for now.
It's more than almost everyone else on this planet Earth.
It maybe is the most at the time of this particular stream, but...
And now you'll have Eldamon Trainer and Elemental Avatar added to the list, too.
Mm-hmm.
You guys make things for Pathfinder, obviously, but also all your content is 5e compatible as well. And that's a lot of, these are a lot of systems you guys are building that work with each other. You're mentioning, your pets might influence your classes or your archetypes and things like that. How do you possibly balance all of those things, even within one system, let alone two? Especially when 5e and Pathfinder, although they have a shared heritage, right? Pathfinder has their multi-action system. 5e has its legendary traits.
So balancing within one system is tough. It helps to have written a significant percentage of the system, so to be familiar with it. And in this case, I did for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, so I have a home field advantage there. And I want to talk about that because when if you've ever needed to have something translated into a foreign language, the person you want to hire is not only someone who speaks both languages, but who the language that is really their native language is the one that you are translating it into. Because you want to make sure that it sounds correct to the people in that language. I mean, you'll do some back and forth probably, but you don't necessarily want to do, for example, a Japanese to English translation where the main person who's translating to English, Japanese is their first language and they took English classes, or vice versa. So similarly, for the 5e translation, I'm familiar with 5e, but we wanted someone who 5e was their first thing to do the translation, then work together with us, do some back and forth on it. And so we got some of the team from EN World's Level Up, who have not only worked on 5e, but did the kind of system work that we appreciate, where they really dove in and tried to figure out some of the behind-the-scenes math and other assumptions that in Pathfinder 2nd Edition the books tell you, but in 5e the books kind of don't tell you those things. And we appreciated that they knew them just coming in already, because we needed things like, hey, we're redoing the economy, and 5e doesn't tell you the economy at all. And they're like, well, we figured it out for Level Up, so we kind of know what economy we need to start to work with, and we did some back and forth on that.
Yeah, it kind of went full circle, because Level Up is kind of the Pathfinder for 5e, if you will, because they took the 5e and then kind of rewrote it for their own system. And they had to do a lot of reverse engineering, and we have the same core team that did a lot of their work. It's doing our work. So they know 5e really well. And they are the ones that made the Battlezoo Bestiary 5e book. They converted all the monsters, and the monsters feel like the Pathfinder monsters. They have a lot of abilities, they have a lot of special actions they can do, but they're 5e. And same thing with the Dragon book. Dragon Ancestries work very differently in 5e. So it was converted into both a race and a class. So it was redone to work.
So when you're doing the, I'll say, transition work between your design, which I infer is initially done in Pathfinder 2nd.
Yes, we do everything in Pathfinder first.
Do you automate the process of conversion, or does it require a hands-on, okay, this has to be...
It's all done by hand.
It's pretty significant. It is far more sophisticated than something that can be done automated. And even if we talk about something that's a little closer, I'll give you an example of why it can't be, and then we can go into for the ones that definitely can't be. So in addition to those Level Up team members, we also got David and Ross, who converted Abomination Vaults from Pathfinder 2nd Edition to 5e for Paizo to convert our adventure, the one that's super extra long. And even just talking with him, it was very clear, if you think you can say, oh, there's, an encounter with 4 level 3 monsters in the Pathfinder 2nd edition, let's make an encounter with 4 CR3 monsters in 5e, it just completely doesn't work, and there is no, that's what you would do, even a person might do that by mistake, and an automation would almost definitely have to do that, but you have to completely rethink it, because the number of creatures and what level they can be, or CR in 5e's case, very different. So it winds up having, obviously the flavor text that's in there's large sections that don't have to change, but anything that does have to change, you really need a human look at. And it's even more so for example, the dragon. So in Pathfinder 2nd edition, Ancestries have Feats and Heritages, and there's so many places that you can put in selections. So when we had 45 different types of dragons you could be, they were all heritages, they had different feats. There are, almost 300 feats in that book. Well, in 5e, you can do feats, but they'll take away your ability score increases, so mostly people are not going to want them that much, and you can barely have very many, or you'll have lost a ton of ability score increases. And a race can have a little bit at the beginning, but what we realized, pretty much immediately, and it was both I did and the 5e converters, I said to them, by the way, you're probably going to have to make it a class in 5e, because there's no other options. There's not an archetype you can do. They said, oh, thank goodness, because I had realized it would have to be a class. I didn't know the right way to bring it up with you and Steven, because no one had said it was a class. And yes, definitely. And so in 5e, there's a dragon class that has a lot of the things that would have been in the archetype that uses up class feats in Pathfinder 2nd edition. So you definitely you can't just convert it automatically. You have to have someone who truly understands the new system, so that you get something, to go back to my foreign language analogy, that truly feels like it's natively in the new thing, and is not kind of English or some other, yes, maybe it's technically in the new, understandable in the second language, but is not accurate.
Yeah, I mean, we went through very carefully to make sure that these work, and had the 5e, vernacular, and even things like resistances and weaknesses, and even what type of, in one system it's lightning, in one system is electricity. It's little intricacies like that you need to know.
Some of those you might be able to automate.
Yeah,
perhaps.
but even just
only a few.
But even the levels, because the levels of the monsters changed between the two. You would think, oh, yes, level 5 monster's level 5 monster. No, they changed the levels. They really went through and made sure they had the right power, because some monsters need to be more powerful for 5e or less powerful, and so forth. So it's all done by hand. That's the answer, and it's excruciatingly detailed. There you go.
Related note. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Steven, why don't you talk a little bit about translating your content into a VTT then?
VTT? That's easy.
Compared to what you were just talking about, yeah,
oh my god, it's so easy. Actually,
you just tell 2 Ians to do
it, and
then it happens.
It really is.
It's easy for you, Steven.
It is so easy. I talk to the Ians, I give them the PDF, I actually create all the icons for them as pings, which they actually then bring down to WebPs, so they're much smaller. And we talk a little bit about layout, but they're pretty good. I haven't gone too crazy with doing custom layouts yet. I mean, we could, but to be honest, I'm trying to just get the content in, and I think the standard Foundry layout is gorgeous. So I haven't gone through custom skinning of HTML or anything like that. We have done some custom fielding here and there to make sure we can get the author's name in and their prizes, and little things like that. We did put in some cool scripts. Recently, we put in the pictures of the monsters as icons, the little round tokens. But people are like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if we can have both in? And so I asked them, can we do that? And they're like, yeah. And they wrote a script that you could run in there that will allow you to change the icons to either just the monsters as standalone or a token. And we put little scripts in for things like that. They do most of the work. They know what they're doing, and I just give them the PDF. The one thing I then do is that when they do give us back the test versions, we do have a really good team of play testers. It's actually pretty big. And they go through extensively and find the mistakes or find issues, because obviously it just happens. And, we go through and continue the process of iterations. It's usually only one or two. They do a great job. They usually get I'll say they get 99%, which is still, you'll still have a few dozen mistakes because there's a lot in there, but they get almost everything. And we'll go in, and sure enough, as you guys know, if there's a mistake or we need to update the module, then we just update the module, because every so often someone will say, oh, you missed something.
In other projects seen people do this, and there's errors, but it's in the source material. We've seen up to 30% error rate in an original bestiary, where the automated calculations catch a human error on the PDF side.
That's actually one of the best parts. So what happens is I actually give them the PDF. They then put it in. They find mistakes. And then everything basically balances itself. It's the PDF and the Foundry modules help finding mistakes in each other. And then we're able to rebalance them and get them just right. And then that usually gets into the print version. So the best part is, by the time you get the print book out, it usually is the most accurate version of them all, because the print book, for better or for worse, the print book comes out much later than we put out the Foundry module or the
I think
PDFs.
It's for better.
I know some people complain.
You're looking at it the wrong way. Is that we give out the PDF and the Foundry module way sooner than anyone else would.
I know, but people are like,
any of them, we would have waited for everything.
I know. People want their books, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but look, we're getting to vet it. I guarantee you, there's a lot of mistakes in any book you out there. There's a lot of mistakes in these books.
There's
just a lot.
It's one of, when we were releasing the beginner box for the recent premium beginner box module we did for Paizo, one of the experiences that I can say puts a smile on my face to think about to this day is the day we released it. We also released the bug tracker, so that people could file reports and tell us, what might be wrong, what we may have missed, errors we may have made, etc. And we had, I'm going to say, up to 6 in the first 12 hours after we made the bug tracker public that were filed as errors in the module. And 10-minute investigation turned up these are typographic errors in the actual original source material.
Oh, yeah.
We could go and change them, and in some cases we did go and change them where the typo was obvious, but this is a product that came out a while ago now. It's not exactly it's the beginner box is a new thing, but of course updating writing in a published book is a lot more engaging and distracting process, and expensive process even, than it is to update it in a digital module.
Yeah. I'll give you a story, and this just happened. So we put out the Dragon book, the 5e Dragon book, as a PDF a few months ago, and I just got it out right away because I know people were waiting for it, and so it's literally does it look good? Let's look good. Out. I just sent it out, and then I gave it to the Foundry team, and they're like, guys, you have saves in here that are Pathfinder saves, and I'm like, oops. And there was a couple of them,
somehow one of them made it past 2 revisions where we thought it was changed and it wasn't. But it's fixed now.
Right, and there was
Constitution, no, it's not Fortitude.
Right, they kept finding Fortitude save. Well, and we're like, oops. And I remembered, I said to myself, note to self, I always have to have the Foundry people go through the PDF before I release it, because then I had to do a version 2 and a version 3, and there's a version 4 coming out soon. They always find the most challenging mistakes, because when they're entering it, especially things like that, because that's very easy to miss, is a Fortitude save rather than a Constitution save. But they always find them because they're putting it in. And for the monsters, actually, we have, because I have an automated program, that is really close to, I won't say it's perfect because you can't put in the numbers and mess them
There's
up.
a few things the program will actually do wrong if the monster is really weird and
Yeah,
non-standard, and that you can't avoid it. You
But
literally can't
they're
edit
good
it
at
to be
finding
right
stuff.
because the program forces it
Yeah.
to be like that. Like if you're doing a troop, the troop hit points are like
Oh, well,
really weird,
troops.
and the thing assumes
How
that
many
it's not
times you
like
doing
that. And
troops?
there's a few others that are weird like that. But other than that, it like kind of forces things
Yeah.
to be right. Like if you don't certain things, if you don't capitalize them,
Right.
it's supposed to be, it'll come in and capitalize or bold them for you.
Yeah, but basically, I love putting it through Foundry because it gives me, it's like an error corrector, and it's like, oh, you guys found this, and I'm like, there you go.
Yeah, it's in ways I experienced a very similar thing when trying to codify my own system. By having to follow a rigid data structure, it forces you to think about each class, ability, whatever you're trying to organize in that same set formula, and by doing so, you can't wiggle around it. Like, language is fluid, but math is solid. So there's no arguing, there's no being vague when it comes to having to put the mathematical components of a ability or what have you into an actual program. The computer doesn't understand vague.
Right. So
I think we are getting to the point where we should start working on audience questions. We've already gotten quite
see
a
a
number
ton.
of them. People seem very excited to ask questions about design and how you guys work and things like that. If you would like to ask either of our wonderful guests a question, drop it in Twitch chat with your question before your question so we can easily find it. We'll try to work through them in roughly the order we see them. Nath, why don't you start us off with one?
Right, so Showbiz Pizza Bear asks, as both publishers and users, and I quite like this question, is there a feature you wish Foundry VTT had that it doesn't currently? We're talking core Foundry, not necessarily specific to Pathfinder 2E or D&D5E.
I probably use Foundry a lot more than Mark does. So
I run Theater of the Mind a lot, so,
Yeah, so
when I do VTTs, pretty much always use Foundry nowadays, but I do a lot of Theater of the Mind.
I don't know if there's a feature. I mean, to be honest, there's so much in there. It's hard to think of anything that I haven't seen. I mean, if anything, and it's not a dig, but it's, I need like good documentation of exactly where everything is and how to do it. There's mostly been YouTube videos of like how to do things. I mean, as a coder, I figure it out, but I feel like Foundry might be getting to that tipping point where there's so much in it. It's almost like Adobe products. Like, it does so much that it's almost hard sometimes to find how to do it. You know it's in there, but you're not exactly sure how to get to it or do it.
But unlike Adobe products, our JavaScript is newer than 1.5.
That's true. I agree. But you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I know it's in there, and sometimes I have to dig a little to find it, which is it's a good problem to have, but it's like it does so much now at this point. It's almost like, yeah, it's an iceberg. That's a good question. It's like you see the tip, but it's like it goes really deep how much you can get in there.
It's funny you should mention new user, like, ways to find new features and understand them, because part of our development for V10 has been focused around bringing a better new user experience. So you may see some motion in that area real soon. I'm hoping to leverage our tours work that Cody labored on excessively to try and bring some hands-on tutorials for new users and to make it a little more friendly for people to grab onto.
Yeah, I mean,
from my perspective as someone who doesn't use it as much, that sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, I like to automate. This is something I do, and anyone who plays with me on any VTT, Foundry has this in there mostly through add-ons, but I always make it that the characters, you just click the character and like all the attacks will come up and you just press a button. I make it a video game. and it's like, I don't want you to fight with the interface, and I will spend time on my end, whether it's through modules or through the VTTs, that you literally, all you need to do is click on your character, move it, and press a button, and that's it. Like, you don't need to know anything else.
It's
Pathfinder
interesting
offers a lot.
It's interesting you're more of an automation person, and I'm kind of somewhere between your level and Mark's level for use of virtual tabletop features, in that I'm not a heavy module person. Most of what I use the feature suite for, I spend a lot of time in journals, and I spend a lot of time setting up scenes for like something my players can stare at while I am running the theater of the mind kind of encounters and the role playing and telling the story communally. For me, my games often combat takes a second stage to the story, so automation and rapid like video gamification of the game isn't really something that I do.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm on the other end of the spectrum in the Foundry staff, in that I'm like, I will write my own modules just to add something. It's like, oh, you know what? I have a big village coming up. I'm going to write something so that they idly chat about the weather and like things in the area, and they pop up with little dialogues. Like, yeah, that's a nice bit of ambiance.
That's what I would do. I mean, well, also we are, and it's just good to know your type of players. Like Mark's very theater of the mind. My guys, and I've been playing with this group. This is Agents of Edgewatch team for actual play for 20 plus 30 years. They're tactical. They're very tactical. They want to see the map. They want to see the measures. They like to put down the tools. You know, to them, maps go fast too. It's like, okay, we're here. Let's explore. We're fighting. We're killing. On to the next one. So, you know, I'm not spending a lot of time putting in like little sound effects, like when they open the door, press on something, you know, or they go into the inn and they can hear stuff. They'll be like, oh, that's cool. Okay, what are we killing? You know, that's how they play. So, you know, as long as it has, in fact, that's what they like is spell effects. Like, oh, I do a fireball and it explodes. They're like, ooh, that's what they like. The sound effects are okay, but the exploding fireball on the screen, that really gets them every time. They love that.
So, Shemet asks, are there design ideas that you've had that can uniquely work in a virtual tabletop, but would not work in a tabletop setting?
Yes.
So, I feel like there are, but that they would generally not be sort of expressed as much in a tabletop RPG, but you can just even see any kind of systems or ideas that happen in computer RPGs more than tabletop RPGs. Typically, if they have more math, if they have a lot of lookup and sort of pointers in the book that you have to go back and forth between places, or a ton of tables. One thing that I can think of that I think is going to work just fine without VTT, but I certainly think that some people are going to love having a Foundry module for, would be like figuring out what Aldebaran you found, or if you found one after a fight, where it's like, oh, we beat a fire giant. Let me press my Foundry VTT button to see. Oh my gosh, it was a legendary fire Aldebaran that was there. Just like being able to press the button, and especially, I don't know, like if it had like an animation, like you were like, there was like a silhouette or something coming up, so that you got that sort of feeling of mystery, and then having it be revealed there, it probably, I think that would have a bigger psychological impact than rolling the tables and then looking it up on the tables and cross-indexing, even if they're both easy enough to do that you can do them quickly in the game.
We're definitely going to do that. Actually,
hey, see, I sold it to Steven. You saw how
well, it's an
Eldedex.
Like, yeah, it's actually...
Or not
almost...
just an Eldedex, but I mean
I know.
module to
I know,
make
you have
it
the
so
animation.
to figure
like
out which creature it was.
Yeah. I know
and so
exactly
that you click it and see, and they're like, oh, sorry, no Aldebaran.
Hey man,
time.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's like a slot machine.
I was about to say slot machine mechanics to someone who works on World of Warcraft. I know all about this stuff, but yeah, we're going to be putting that in there because you want to be pressing that button like, ooh, what Aldebaran's coming up? What Aldebaran's coming up? Even if you're
Please
not
don't make us have to put gambling warnings on our content.
It's not gambling.
You don't have to pay for it.
You don't have to pay for it. There's no.
Just send Roll for Combat $2 and you can roll the Aldebaran slot.
No,
That's right.
we're never gonna.
No, that's
do
for
that.
the shiny. If you
Some
want a shiny.
people like collecting and they like that sort of gambling feel, but we never want you to actually gamble your own money or lose your money to do it. We want to let you feel that
your
with
in-game gold.
Yeah, we want to let. Well, we won't even cost that. We want to let you feel that in a way that's not like actually negatively affecting you the way that gambling does in real life.
No, God, no. But it is there is tables. So like the Eldamon, they are like, so for instance, like the fire squirrel. These are common, like all the ones that we've been showing. These are common, but there are rarities, and you will be rolling on a table. So if you go to a cold area, you might roll on a 1d100, and if you roll 100, you get the rare one, the super rare one. As you level up, it might get easier to find the rare ones, or different, different things might
like that
make
otter
it
is the most
easier.
common, but we've
this one's
shown
super
art
common.
in no direction of the elemental avatar, who actually has an incredibly rare like icicle wolf Eldamon that is the one that's inside of him. So
Right. But we can have it all automated, because there's also going to be subtables that sort of make all the Eldamon slightly different from each other, so that even if you get common ones, not every single one is going to be common. But yeah, we're not doing this. There's no, like, even the card game, it's not collectible. It's
Right.
it's like you get all the cards. Like, we're not doing anything.
It
I
still
just wanna make
has
sure. We were just
different
joking.
cards, but you just get them all.
Yeah,
so
there's no
if you get the fire and ice deck, it has all of the fire and ice Eldamon. There's no like chase element where it's like,
No.
we want to have to open these randomized packs to see if we got the rare legendary Eldamon. We're not doing that for you. With the
it's
cards.
genuinely nice to hear you guys are approaching it like ethically and are considering like the fact that some people might just make trading card game and move on, right? But you guys have considered the history and context and like are approaching it ethically, which is really nice to hear. Matt, our producer behind the screens, is wondering if he were to defeat you, what Eldamon would he find?
Oh my God! Wow, Mark, you go first. we've only designed
Eldamon would
some of
he
them
find
so far.
if he defeated me.
I'll have to look at the table.
Let me look at the list of Eldamon. That's
Send
a
me
good
the link.
question.
I need. Oh no, I have it. I have this right here.
Share that list with us so that Cody and I can randomly pick based on element.
Well, you can
I
give
mean,
us an
I don't
element.
know. I might be like
I can give you a random one.
like the mind rat one, or the maybe the time snake eating its own tail Ouroboros thing. Nobody's seen those
Nath,
before.
I really have you, envisioned as the dolphin because you're so cheerful.
Oh my God, the dolphin! You did the dolphin. Do the dolphin voice. Do the dolphin voice.
You have to take out the plushie for it.
That is.
Hello, everybody.
That is way, way too chipper for me to achieve. That is not in my wheelhouse. I'm probably closer to the turtle.
The
In that-
lightning
People
turtle.
love the electric.
In that
lightning turtle.
I'm short, grumpy, and I will absolutely electrocute you if you bother me.
Damn. I don't know. There's so many. Force, life. I mean, I do like the dog, although it is a death dog. Death dog.
You could be more pup. I could see you as more pup.
Because he's
It matches your shirt.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's a flying death dog, and it's like the head of a dog and the body of a butterfly.
It has a butterfly-like scarf. It's sort of floating, and its wispy tail like sort of mostly connects to the ground, but it looks really cool.
I know what Cody would be. He'd be
Yeah.
the cat, Earth Cat. And here's the thing: how much does this cat weigh? Because this cat it's covered with
Topaz weighs a
gems
lot.
and earth. So when this thing jumps on your shoulder, Cody, how much does this thing weigh? You looking it up in the Eldadex?
We don't have an Eldadex entry for it yet, but it's gonna be a lot.
A couple 100 pounds. So this little thing, it's like you'll have a little cat that'll jump on you and break your arm.
You might have to not be a shoulder cat.
So we have a question from
It's probably. I don't think it's a
Trio
several hundred pounds, but it's gonna be at
Deregion?
least 30 to 40.
All right.
asking, how do you approach the need of some DnD5E content to have system level modifications? So basically, when you're looking at moving your content into the virtual tabletop for game systems like Pathfinder 2E or DnD5E, if in order to support that class or creature or what have you, it would require modification to the game system to support it, how do you go about that? What is your method of dealing with that problem?
We haven't. This actually has come up because they wanted to ask if we wanted to like have support modules for our module, or if we wanted to like change some functionality. And to be honest, I'll tell you two things that happened. One, I said no because I don't want to have support modules for any of our modules, because if something happens to the support module, then yours breaks. So that's no. And second, it's nice to have the Ians on the team because they're like, we can't do this right now, but I think in the next version of Foundry, we can talk and figure out how to get it in there. So the secret is get some of the key Foundry people on your team to do your modules so that they actually then put it into version 10 or 11, and then you don't have to worry about that.
That's smart. I should try that.
I will draw a slight clarification for the audience that the Ians they're referring to are actually with the volunteer Pathfinder dev team. They're not actually Foundry staff.
Sure.
But they are extremely experienced data entry folks from that team, and they do have very keen insight. They do speak with us on an almost weekly basis. So they have the knowledge of what may be forthcoming in Foundry versions, and as with all our system developers from the community development team, if you have something that your system or module is going to need support for, you have ability to request it. That's what our dev API phase is for. We highlight a very specific part of our development work dedicated explicitly to taking requests from our development community and trying to find ways to extend our API that would allow them to do things they wouldn't be able to do normally.
Yeah, one thing that's come up a lot is size changing, because a lot of our classes, and like with the dragon, they can change sizes, and I know there's been some automation issues of like trying to figure out how to get things like that in, and it just has to be done manually. Like, yeah, we can write it, but it's just too much work. So like things like that we've talked about with our team.
Just looking at the list of questions, I feel like there was one more that we didn't.
I see
right.
a few in here.
Mr. Redzane asks, are there any plans? Oh, sorry, Cody. This may be for us. About. Yeah. Okay. We'll come back to this because it's about plans for providing documentation on how to get started as a new coder. So we can circle back to that.
I think I have a good last one as we're wrapping up. I don't think we jotted down who asked it, but in your course of reviewing hundreds and hundreds of homebrew monsters, do you feel like there's a common mistake that new makers often make?
Yes. That's it.
Yeah,
Your
all right.
just
Thank you for
yes.
your valued
I think
insights.
there's a lot of common mistakes that monsters creators make, but they're like usually anything that's in common between them are usually pretty small. If we're talking about like technical errors, like saying like a bite strike instead of jaws, that like more people make that mistake than not. If we're talking about like big picture mistakes, sometimes an author who's excited for a contest gets a little bit too excited about putting in like as many special abilities and spells and other things as they can possibly cram into the monster, and runs out of space for the story of the monster. Because they're like, why let me show it off by showing how many abilities this has. Whereas sometimes if you have a strong concept for the monster, it may only need a few really thematic abilities to tell that story, and you may have wound up giving it so many abilities that it doesn't even have enough of turns that it's going to be alive in the combat to use all of them appropriately. So I think when we're talking about the mindset of an eager person, like, I'm going to show them what I can do with my skills, and maybe it does show a lot of technical skills in the different abilities that are designed, but it winds up being a monster that's not as successful of a monster because of it.
We actually did a talk on this. You can find it on our YouTube channel of how to build a successful monster. If you just go to youtube.rollforcombat.com and look. And I actually have a talk at Gen Con about how to build successful monsters. And we spent a whole hour talking about this. I will give you some secrets. First of all, most of our winners test their monsters. That's the first thing. They actually run them with their home games. The reason they do that is because monsters actually have usually a couple of rounds of things they do. They'll usually have like a beginning, middle, end. And you really have to think of your monsters as having sort of like what steps they're going to do and like what they do during the combat, because they don't live very long and you got to make them memorable. So they better have something they do. It shouldn't just be all claw, bite. Like if they have cool abilities, what do they do right away? What do they do in the middle? What do they do then? Do they blow up? Like what? The second thing I would say is, and again, don't forget, we started with Pathfinder and then convert to 5e, is that you have to know how the monsters and their special abilities are written out. If you look at any of the Paizo bestiaries, you'll see that they use very specific language. Don't rewrite the language. Literally copy and paste it and rewrite it to your needs, because that's what we do. We make sure all the language has to be exactly the same. The way, it's hard. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but you should use the exact same language if you're going to be using a poison, if you're going to be using a spell ability, if you're going to be doing something. Like, you should almost always be able to find an example of what you're trying to do in an existing monster.
And sometimes the monster has an ability that's a universal ability, like Steven's favorite Aquatic Ambush, that you need to, all of us coders on here know, don't reinvent the wheel. If something's already out there that you can use something that already exists. It also saves you words in the monster too if you use a pre-existing ability and you don't have to write something new out. Yeah, like Trample, Aquatic Ambush, like any of these, Rending, like this stuff exists. There's a lot of these pre-made monster abilities. Just use them. Don't rewrite Trample. Okay, Trample's in there. You don't have to or Swallow Whole. Like, it's in there. Just use it. Breath weapons, things like that. Auras, it's all in there. And sometimes I see people who literally rewrite an aura, and I'm like, they just spent 200 or 100 words of their 650 words writing something that we're going to get down to like 10, or 3. So that's really it. I mean, the difference between the copper and the grand prize really comes down to how much more do we need to edit this. The grand prize and the platinums, and for the last contest, because they added more to them, they came in almost ready to go. Like, we almost had to do nothing to make them work and put them in the book. Very little. And that's it. Like that. And then the other ones, we'd have to rewrite, combine abilities. They had a lot of cool abilities, but they had 5 abilities. They only needed 3, so we would take 2 of them and combine them. Things like that. Right. Like, it's theoretically possible, the way that judging is a composite of multiple scores, to have something that was not like Steven said, that is technically all has everything in there and has a bad high concept, but it's almost never happens that way. It almost always happens the way that Steven mentioned, where what you're looking at is more of finishing touches among the winners to decide how much they won by. Yeah.
And
Well,
again,
hopefully we've inspired some viewers to participate in the next one.
yes,
That's going to come up later this year, and I can tell you,
very
Strange and Unusual was the theme for the second one last year. This year's theme is sort of based on Eldamon a little. That's not to say you're making an Eldamon, but we want you to make a creature that is themed after one of the 10 to 20 Eldamon elements that some Eldamon might want to meld into, and that if you have your Foundry module, that you might pop out an Eldamon after defeating. So, like, that doesn't mean that they are elementals, like, that have the elemental trait. It could be, like, a fae that plays a harp for music or something like that. So, there's a lot of ground you can cover with that theme. And that's what the theme's going to be this year. So you can start thinking about what monster or monsters you can enter up to 3 that you're going to enter this year.
Yep.
Start now.
I know. If you go to our Discord channel, people are already making their monsters.
They
'cause
are.
We gave them the theme, so they are already starting. And I know there was one more question. Matt XD, didn't you want a snake? Didn't you want one of these little buddies?
He absolutely does.
Well, you know, you can join the Kickstarter, but maybe we'll send you one if we can get. I need an extra. It's my only one right now because it's a prototype. But when we get them in, we'll see what we can do. The Lotus Snake. It's Snick. It's not Snake. Snick. And the nice thing is these guys are life size, and you can.
They're very close.
They're very close.
I think that they tend to be. It varies, but the Eldamon themselves tend to be about like 1.5 times bigger in the dimensions. So. That's super close to the actual size of the creature.
Yeah, and there's minis, there's Eldadexes, there's a whole bunch of things besides these books, and the reason the reason we're doing this is that, you know, I've said it before. It's like, how many GM screens do you need? You know, I see a lot of Kickstarters with stuff, and this is also fun because you can be playing on a VTT, and I can still hold up my little Snick and say, I summon him. He comes out, and you can still use it even though it's a VTT or a live game.
Well, we will both be at Gen Con, and we will have a couple surprises as well for anyone who sees us in person. We'd be happy to do some trades when we see you guys there.
Oh, well, I'll be there.
Steven's going to be there, but I will be, manning the home front in case there's anything going on back here.
Yeah.
There was too much of a new variant of COVID for me, so I canceled coming to Gen Con.
Yeah. I'm like indestructible. I like go to sporting events. And
Steven could not be
shows.
defeated.
No. Well, I had it too. Like, you don't want to know.
Yeah, no, like a fraction of the Foundry staff is going to be there, 1/3. So we understand.
Well, a higher fraction of us, 50%, Steven.
Yeah. I might actually be able to bring, because this is the first round, and actually they've done the second round, and I should have those pretty soon, so I might be able to bring them.
Final round. Fight!
Well, it's not the final round. It's not the final round.
Fair enough.
So, you guys run a weekly, in addition to everything else that you operate on a weekly basis, you also do a weekly live stream where you get content creators and other community publishers and personalities from YouTube and Twitch and everywhere to come on and talk about topics related to role-playing games, including myself next week, where I'm going to show up and presumably get bullied on various subjects.
You are? All right.
Worst,
By the way, Mark, he's coming on the show next week.
Oh,
the
cool.
worst role-playing, the worst role-playing game I ever experienced, or like the worst session that I ever ran for my players, or something.
Really?
Make you talk about your favorite Final Fantasy.
Oh, we could talk about that. But we got to come up with a good topic. So the secret of the show is I come up with the topic like hours before the show goes live. Because I'm so busy. We're so busy doing stuff. But yeah, we do the weekly show because
Steven, could we do a topic on using virtual tabletops in your game?
Yeah, we can.
You might have an expert on that.
We have 2 experts.
Maybe.
2 experts.
Some of my views on usage of virtual tabletops may surprise people, because I am not the average user for Foundry VTT. I am someone who uses it exclusively, but I'm not the guy installing 60 or 100 modules
Yeah.
to automate everything under the sun.
Well, that's fine
That's
because
fair.
everyone does it differently, and some
Maybe
people...
that'll be an even
Yeah.
more interesting show where we,
Yeah.
we have you on from Foundry and you have different views than people.
I'm on Foundry and I use it vanilla. I just use the most
I
basic
had the
version
pleasure
of
of being in a short game of Nath's, and this was, I think, when V9 rolled out stable, not too long after that. And he ran a game where we were being hunted down by these creatures. It was a bit Eldritch Core kind of, but between the lighting, which was very dark, we only had little flashlights illuminating our view and like a glistening beat red light in the distance where we were trying to go, and him using audio played only to certain players. It was terrifying and brilliant.
Yeah, that's the
Did
one.
that sort of gaslight players who didn't realize they were the only ones who were hearing certain
Mhm.
things? And they're like, "Did you
Because
hear
like
that?"
it's totally
Everyone's like,
something you
"No,
can
we
do in
didn't hear
Foundry,
that."
but you're not used to use of audio like that.
Yeah, that's the best thing of VTTs is the number one thing that you can do in VTTs that is impossible is line of sight. Because like if you can't see, you can't see. There's no cheating. There's no like, oh, I can see the map. It's like, no, you can't see. That's like, unless they move their character, they just see black. And I know that has changed the game, at least for my players, because it's really made them, especially when they're in those situations, like they move very slow. You know, they're just literally moving square to square. They don't like run through the hallways like they normally would. So
My last campaign featured a PC who was a part werewolf. Well, I mean, was a werewolf, usually human form. So I
Which
gave him,
part?
yeah.
The tail.
So
The
I
tail
gave him.
was a werewolf.
I know it's got a tail.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it.
in
Just
the ears,
tail.
you know. I gave him the ability to see slightly, like a couple feet further, not much, than any other PC in the dark, which often led to moments where he was like, "Oh my gosh, do you guys see that?" And they're like, "No, what are you talking about?" Which is just a perfect role play moment fueled by real, the fact you can do that.
Alright.
It has been a pleasure having you guys on. Nath, do you have anything else before we wrap up with them?
No, I think it's been absolutely excellent getting to hear a lot about the Battlezoo product line and what's going on with, Aldebaran and the upcoming Kickstarter for Year of Monsters.
Year of
I
Monsters.
remembered it. That is forthcoming. That is, I'm less interested in the Aldebaran product line myself, but that Year of Monsters thing has my attention. Even as someone who doesn't play Pathfinder or DnD5E, it's still enough of a draw that I'm looking at the Kickstarter right now, going, do I wanna? I've seen nothing but praise for the Roll for Combat products from the Pathfinder 2 community. I can say that everyone likes what you're doing who has purchased it. I have seen zero negative criticism about the Battlezoo product. So it's very telling that there's that much of a positive push for it, and I encourage people to look at the Kickstarters, look at the available products, check out some of the free stuff they've released. But yeah, it's really cool to be able to sit here and talk to you guys about it.
I'm backing at whatever tier gets me all the plush.
There's two. There's
Yeah.
2 tiers.
There's the PDF plus plush and the
Everything.
hardcover
Everything
plus
here.
even more plush.
Yes. Oop, there goes my
Excellent. I'm glad you've identified the tier
Yes.
I'm with.
Okay.
You get it's good value. I mean, to be honest, that the plushes we're making are superb quality. It's the same people who do Tentacle Kitty and
if you get these plushes
Gallant
alone
Goblin.
on the Tentacle Kitty, like I looked on that Kickstarter, theirs are a little smaller and are like $30 just
Yeah.
for the Kickstarter that's only the plushies.
Yep.
And these plushies get added on from, like if you go from, well, what if I just want all the PDFs? Well, what if I want the PDFs plus all, like it gives like a whole bunch of other stuff which also includes the plushies. like the cost of the plushies alone makes up a significant portion of that.
I mean, we are insane because it's like most people do one book or they do one plushies and that's it. It's like we have 15 books, 6 plushies, 10 minis, 2 Eldadexes, 5 sets of dice, Foundry modules for everything, meetings with us, Eldadexes, and that's all one Kickstarter.
Yeah.
That's
did
a lot.
you talk about the five decks of cards? I might have missed it, but
the 5 decks of cards.
Yeah,
and
the 5 decks of cards, which will have a whole bunch of Eldamon for the card game, which lets you do battles based on the card game. So like the tier that is I called hardcover plus plushies, which is like the kind of the year of everything. Like the difference from the plushies alone compared to just getting the hardcovers, getting all 6 plushies on another Kickstarter would more or less pay for that. And it also adds all 5 of the decks of cards, 10 miniatures, 5 dice sets, 2 of the like these really intricately cool art leather bound like Phoenix and Dragon Eldadex journals that you can write your stuff in, and I think some other things possibly depending on the stretch goals.
There's a lot.
It's a lot. Oh right.
A lot.
Also you get the limited edition numbered and signed version of the hardcovers
edition
at that tier. So it's like it really saves a lot of money to get some of the tiers, and I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, we definitely are into that. And this time we'll make sure everything comes out correct. I know it sounds crazy, but we have a lot of it done already. That's the secret this time, because last time I had to figure out how to do this stuff, but the minis are done, the plushies are ready to go.
Yeah, before we started the show, you guys were actually showing us like how you got the plushies designed. If you don't mind, is it okay to show that off, Matt?
Yeah,
do you mind pulling that up quick?
Yeah, you can show. If anyone wants to see, like...
This is apparently a very long outro.
Well, I can... Yeah, people want to see how the sausage is made. It's actually pretty interesting, because the guys who did the minis for us, it's the same team that does all the WizKids minis, so I learned a lot about minis, and like they showed me their backgrounds and like how WizKids gives them. You probably shouldn't have done that, but he shows me like the WizKid layouts, and it's really interesting like how they do the painting. And then for plushies, I also spoke to a whole bunch of teams, and yeah, that's so.
It's Boto.
So that's how so we actually had the actual artwork for Boto. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, there it goes.
It's Lotus Snake.
And then we basically took it, and I have my team with myself come up with that, and I give it out to the team, and you can see, so we set all the colors, we set the size, pretty much everything, but even like the patterns, and they matched it. This company we use matched it almost identical, as you can see, and they've been doing a great job. So this is a little bit of the behind the scenes. Yep, and the dolphin plushie. In fact, I was saying they did too good of a job because I forgot the blowhole. And now
you can see in that schematic like, it doesn't have a blowhole. So.
It doesn't really, and they're like, oh, you didn't put it on. I'm like, yep, you're right, and I have to now add it. So that's version 2, but they've been great to work with. So, and yeah, we're gonna literally. The good news is almost everything else we've been working on is more or less done. It's pretty close. It's at the very last stages of everything we had from the first Kickstarter.
From the previous, yeah.
Yeah, and so
the main thing is we're waiting on some maps from the cartographer, because we have like one of the most famous cartographers probably, and he has a lot of work in Dragonlance also right now.
He's literally doing the Dragonlance maps. So he's a little busy, but he's done something like 70% of our maps for Jewel the Indigo Isle. I know people out there are like, "Where's my Jewel?" Like, I'm close.
We should be able to get the first part to people soon. Other than the fact that the Kickstarter is right around the corner and constantly barraging us with newer things that we realize that have to be there.
But the good news is Mark is going to work on this full time as soon as this is ready. Mark goes right into Eldamon and right into Ancestries. And we will make sure, and this is the best part of it, since it's all being released online, at least the Battlezoo Ancestries and the Foundry module. Can't miss that. Can't miss a January date. Don't have to worry about printers. Don't have to worry about anything as long as we get it in there. comes out. So we'll make sure
every month
comes
another
out.
Ancestry, and
That's
then the
right.
giant compilation book at the end.
That's right. So if you want to play a dragon dungeon or a dungeon whose avatar is a dragon, now you can.
I think you should do a dungeon whose avatar is a dragon, like, because you get to decide what your avatar is, and it's another Ancestry. So that way you are a dungeon and a dragon. And
Can you
do
be
it in Pathfinder.
Can you be a dungeon as a dragon who's then also being carried around as an intelligent weapon?
So you could, you could be a dungeon whose avatar was an intelligent weapon, and the intelligent weapon was being carried by a dragon.
There you go.
You do it in that way.
There you go.
Because
So
you have to
could
decide
be-
like what's carrying you.
You
when
could
you're
be
an
a
intelligent
dungeon whose avatar is Black Razor, who's being carried around by a dragon.
weapon. I could see
All
a
right.
dungeon's avatar being a weapon.
Gentlemen,
it's
I'm sure we
pro-
could talk.
I know.
hours.
We'll let you go. But you see, this is insanity. This is what we do.
It's
been an
probably
absolute pleasure.
unfair, but I have this mental picture that this is what production meetings for Roll for Combat are like. Like your
that's
weekly
fair.
stand-ups are sitting around and like, but could we make this character work in this?
Well, you want to know the
It's
real
hilarious
truth.
to picture.
Our weekly stand-up meetings are so similar to this that they generally are like things that are at the end of streams where we just stay in the meeting and talk exactly like this. So it's even more similar than you thought.
And we just need to get the ampersand as an ancestry, and we got them all.
Careful. Courting trademark violations might get yourselves in trouble.
Hey, there's a sidebar about that in the Dungeon Ancestry.
Yeah, the Dungeon Ancestry was released on April Fool's, so it has very playful sidebars, and one of them is like, you know, if you form a party with a dragon, you need to be careful about exactly what you name your adventuring party, and you should probably take the legal lore skill to make sure that you, or the barrister background to make sure that you're safe. Otherwise, you might get thrown into a very different type of dungeon.
Oh man, it's been absolutely great talking to you guys. We should probably bring the show to a close. Thank you everyone in the audience who has joined us. We're pushing that 2-hour limit, and Cody and I actually have some work related to work to do. So we should probably go and do those things. Migration guides aren't going to write themselves, Cody.
Can we talk to Roll for Combat more instead?
Yeah, you said that you were going to talk about the RPG Superstar like tool integration into Foundry after this, right?
Oh yeah. let's
Yeah.
talk about that.
I think I have to
See
do that.
the trouble you
instead,
get yourself in, Cody? This is how you
It's
get
work.
yourself in trouble.
It's considered work.
Work.
It was definitely great to have you guys on. Look forward to Nath joining them. Nath, when is that?
I believe it is 11 a.m. Pacific next Tuesday.
That's
That
right.
is this coming Tuesday.
Which is 2 p.m. Eastern.
Yep. And we will figure out a topic.
And that is Tuesday the 19th.
That's right.
All right. I will see you guys on Tuesday. And I think, Cody, do you have any last minute commentary?
I think we had one question for us here at Foundry that we wanted to talk about.
Yes. Yep. I said we would get back to it. It was from Mr. Red Zane. Let me scroll up so we don't lose it. And it was about the availability of documentation for new developers coming in. Not just the migration documents, but if we have any plans related to providing a more direct hands-on guide for new developers. My answer on it is we'd love to be able to do that, but it is a lot more complex than it seems due to the amount of difficulty in maintaining it. Before getting hired, I actually created and wrote one of the guides that I think may still be getting kicked around in the system development room about how to repurpose the simple world building system for your own nefarious ends, and threw that out into the world, and I intended to keep it up to date and get back and keep maintaining it, and I still, to this day, have not been able to revisit it and rewrite it. I'd like to do something similar, but I don't have the code knowledge necessary.
We are, in general, always trying to improve the ease of onboarding, be it a new user trying out Foundry for the first time, a new developer cutting their chops with the Foundry API, an experienced developer, coming in and wanting to get something done, a content creator looking to get their content converted. We're always working to make the better with things like adventure documentation, migration guides, the new user experience. There's a lot left to do. Foundry is a huge software, but I at least hope that we can make it that new things we add will make discoverable, so we're at least not getting further behind. I think someone else also asked a question about content. We have recently partnered with Paizo. Nath, do you want to tell us what content is already out and available to buy today?
Right, so we are one of two companies producing content for Foundry VTT for Paizo, specifically focused for now on Adventure Path releases. For Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it's us and the Sigil Entertainment Group. Sigil has recently released and just finished releasing the 3-book Outlaws of Alkenstar Adventure Path. We released the Beginner Box module and Abomination Vaults module, both of which will be receiving updates to meet version 10, including a reorganization of journals and a few other things to utilize some of the cool new features that we are baking in. And we do have some other things in the pipeline for Pathfinder 2nd Edition long term. I can't reveal much about that yet, except to say that they are coming. But I may be appearing on a Paizo stream around the time of Gen Con, where I might be able to let some further details slip for those of you who are out in the audience and looking eagerly towards a future with more Foundry Paizo content.
The last thing before we roll out, although the other thing that we wanted to tease for Gen Con didn't show up on time for this stream, talking about collectibles and shinies, if you find us at Gen Con, you can claim one of 100 V10 holographic demo disc stickers. Exactly 100 in the world to celebrate V10 Sable. And I think that is hammering out.
Yeah, I think that brings our show to a close. Matt, let's take us out. Thank you everyone for attending.